hold every record that's been registered with the registry since 1788. So, first of all, we're going to have a look at Cora Web. Now, you should be able to see the Cora Web on your screen. Now, this has been developed by a lady called Cora Nunn. Is a fellow of the Heraldry and Genealogical Society of Canberra. Worked as a professional family history researcher and lecturer for over 30 years. So in 1997, she established Cora Web, and it's actually older than Google. And this site today is internationally recognised and attracts thousands of visitors each day. So if you just remember Cora Web, as we have here, you just need to Google that, and this is the screen that will come up. Today we're just going to be looking at two specific parts of this quite extensive site. The first thing we're going to do is look at quick sheets, which the pointer is pointing at right now. Now we click it on that, and here you have 9 or so, in fact more, 10, 11, 12, 13, about 14 quick sheets. The two we're going to look at first of all, the one we're going to look at first of all, is the one we have on our screen, quick sheet number 1. Now, in order to start looking for your ancestors, you need first of all to have some idea of whether the records you're looking for are likely to be available. So this quick sheet 1 sets out all of the different state and territory registries and what they contain that you can get access to. So you can see there in that chart that's on your screen the various states and territories, what date they started to record, what date births are available to, deaths are available to, and marriages are available to. Now, birth, deaths and marriages are a state and territory responsibility. So you have a different organisation in each state and territory dealing with the registry. So it makes it a little bit messy because not all of them are the same and not all of them operate in the same way. It's interesting that in New South Wales, because when the Europeans first came here, as you will recall, the eastern half of this continent, this island continent, was called New South Wales. And the records in New South Wales go back to 1788. And for a beginning, the churches actually did all the records of baptisms, marriages and burials. It wasn't until 1856 that the government took over this responsibility. Now, with the early church records, because the registrant had to attend church, there are some life events that didn't actually get registered. So, as I just said, New South Wales goes back to 1788. Victoria started their own registry in 1836, Tasmania 1838, Western Australia 1841, South Australia 1842, Queensland 1859, and the Northern Territory is quite interesting because up until in 1856 it was part of the New South Wales Registry. Then in 1863 it moved to the South Australian Registry, and it wasn't until 1870 that Northern Territory started its own registry. And last but not least, the ACT began their registry from 1918. Now, with all of these registries, you also have to look at the privacy rules which apply to each of the state and territory registries. So if we go back at this stage and we have a look at quick sheet 2, here you see each of the different registries, starting with the ACT, New South Wales, Northern Territory, Queensland, South Australia, Tasmania, Victoria, and Western Australia. And you've also got a hot link there, which will take you directly to the organisation that handles the registrations. You'll also see details here in these two columns of the cost of getting a certificate from the registry, either with or without an index number. You'll see there that the prices vary quite a lot, particularly in New South Wales, and we'll be looking at other ways of getting a family history certificate through these three organisations over here. We'll talk about those in a little while. So you see that in most cases, births are only available for dates up until 100 years ago, deaths until 30 years ago, and marriages until 50 years ago. Now, these are privacy issues. They apply similarly to most registries. And just scrolling down, you can see the various costs. Interestingly enough, Victoria is quite different from most of the others in as much as it will provide you with an online image, and then if you want a certificate, you can buy that on the spot and it will be emailed to you as a PDF. So we'll go now to the New South Wales Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages, which is a very simple one to navigate. Now that is their home page. Now this organisation is part of the Department of Customer Service. The registry was formed in 1856 to register life events in New South Wales accurately and securely for all time, ensuring their integrity and confidentiality. As I said earlier, the early church records date from 1788 to 1856, and only baptismal records, burial records, or marriage records were kept at that time. Interestingly, the very, very first of the registries, the first burial, in fact, was registered on the 3rd of February 1787, and that was of an unfortunate man called James Bradley, who was aboard the convict transport, the Alexander, and he was probably buried in the English Channel, so that poor man didn't get very far at all. The first birth was registered on the 20th of April 1787 of a young man called William Tilley, who was born aboard the Lady Penrhyn, which was a convict transport that only had women convicts on it. And he was born in the Celtic Sea, probably just south of Cornwall. The first marriage was actually after the first fleet arrived on the 10th of February 1788, a marriage between William Parr and Mary McCormick, which occurred on the corner of Bligh and Hunter Streets in Sydney, and it was celebrated by the Reverend Richard Johnson, who was chaplain to the First Fleet. Now you can do online searches on this particular site. So if we scroll down, and it's worth Googling this at some stage when you've got some time, and all you need to do is Google NSW BDM and it will come up. So we scroll down and we click on Start Searching Your Family History. And that brings up a menu of births, deaths, or marriages. And we'll come back and we'll look at this in more detail in a little while. Now, when you're searching, you'll probably encounter the fact that names are spelt differently sometimes. Now, this is mostly due to the fact that a mistake was made in recording the name, because a lot of people who were registered, particularly in the early days, either did not read or write or either, and all of this was phonetically dictated to them by the registrant to a clerk in the registry, who wrote down what they thought they heard. Possible also that a name was changed from another language into English, and some records are mistakenly recorded because the original records were quite difficult to interpret. One of the things that we come across is older handwriting, where the capital L and the capital S are often written so similarly that it was difficult to tell the difference between them. The same is true for capital I and capital J. In addition, rounded lowercase letters such as the A and the O and the U could also appear identical, especially when the A or the O were left slightly open at the top, or the U was almost closed at the top. And we'll look at an example and I'll show you how you can use one of the tips and tricks to get around that. Now, within this particular site, and I just have to find where I want to go to next. No, that's not it. Sorry. Excuse me for making you giddy from going up and down. This agency have just redone this site, and I'm afraid that I'm not as conversant with it as I should be. Now, one of the things you can use to try and get over the fact that spellings of names are different are the different types of hot links and various characters that you can use to overcome differences in spelling. And these are the three that this agency uses, and some of these are common to other search engines as well. So we've got things like the asterisk, which will replace a string of letters, the question mark, which will replace a single letter or character, and the ampersand, which represents sound X. Now, sound X is used to commonly, or to sort out commonly confused consonants such as B, P, F, and V. So we'll go back to the actual registry now, and I'll show you how you might use these to actually overcome a difference of spelling. I just have to go back to the beginning. Now this is the search screen or the inquiry screen for births, and you'll see that is the search screen for deaths. And the search screen for marriages. So they're very similar. And we're going to go and have a look at births. Now, how I'm going to demonstrate this is I'm going to put in some family details here of a family called Thorncraft. Now, because we want to find out all of the children born to this couple, we leave the name of the child blank, but we put in the father's given name, and we put in the mother's given name, and the range of dates we're going to search from are from 1841 to 1858. So if we then hit the search button, we get these registrations for this couple's children. And you'll note that there are 5. Okay, we believe they had more children than that. So if we go back and we look at a different spelling, applying the fact that the O and the A in writing were sometimes confused, no, it didn't work. No, there's been something wrong, sorry, just bear with me. It helps if the misspelt name is spelt correctly. So here we have the output of the registry of some other children. Now how we can overcome this is if we modify our search criteria, and instead of the A or the O, if we put in the asterisk. And when all of the other information is left the same, we see that by using the asterisk instead of using the actual spelling, we get all of the children apart from the fact that we get Fanny registered twice. So I dare say you'll have some questions about that shortly. Now let's have a look at how we can use this to our advantage. Now, if we have a male person in our family history who got married and we know their particular name, so we'll use a bridegroom by the name of Smith. Now, all of the search areas which have this asterisk on them have to have some detail put in them. So in the bride's family name, we put in an asterisk, which is a string of letters, and we're going to search from 1795 to 1801. Now here you see the types of registrations that you will get, which are part of the early church registrations. You'll see that they have an entirely different looking number, and they have the bride, groom and the bride's names, but instead of having a place where the registration took place, they have a two-letter code. Now that is called the early church codes. This is back in the days when the churches only were doing these registrations. You'll see that only one of those is readily available. The others you'll have to go through and endeavour to find them through the registry. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have the early church codes. Now, how you go about finding those is whatever code you found on the registration, you come and look them up in alphabetical order. So you'll see that AB was the Baptist Church at the Field of Mars, AC was the Baptist Sydney St James, and so on. And you can search right through the alphabet to find all of the different churches who may have made registrations of baptisms, marriages, or funerals. Now, back when we were looking at Cora Webb, we talked about going to a transcription agent to get your transcripts. No, I'm sorry, I've gone off track again. No, sorry, people. I'm sorry, I can't find what I'm looking for here, which is very unfortunate. Registry records. No, I'm not able to find that, so I'm sorry. What I was endeavouring to find is the details of transcription agents. Now, transcription agents are people who are licensed to go into the registries on your behalf and look for the details on the in the registry. Now, the information that they can provide to you as a genealogist is exactly the same as you would get yourself through the registry, but it is a lot less expensive. You can also do a partial search, or you can get a complete certificate. Let's have another attempt to see if I can find where they're hiding. No, I think I have to give up on that, I'm sorry. I should have made myself more conversant with this new layout before today. So, Jim, if you'd like to open up to questions, I'll be happy to take anybody's questions, please.
Okay, Leigh, do you want to keep your screen shared, or are you happy to come back to just talking to us one-on-one?
No, I can leave the screen shared in case we have to refer to something.
Okay, I'll just stop the sharing. I can see you all again, and following our usual process, we'll poll people who have their hands up. And the first person I can see with her hand up is Jill. So over to you.
Hi, thanks, Leigh. I was a late arrival, so thank you. Leigh, I'm just helping a family in Queensland try and find their background. So for them to go right back, just to double check, they need to also look under New South Wales Registry for way back at the beginning. Is that correct?
Yes, if you go to those two sites that I referred to on Cora Web, you'll be able to then establish, given the dates of the life events that you're looking for, it'll give you some idea of whether the registrations that you might be looking for are either in New South Wales or in Queensland. You find funny things like Moreton Bay, Queensland. Somebody may be baptised or married in Brisbane, New South Wales. So some of the very early records are quite confusing. So I refer you back to Cora Web for those quick sheets. Were you here for the beginning of the presentation?
Yes, I was. Yes, thank you.
So just Google up Cora Web, and in the top toolbar of Cora Web are the quick sheets. Go into that and look through quick sheets 1 and 2 to establish where those records might be.
Thank you.
Gordon, I saw you had a question.
Yes, I was wondering where the records for Thursday Island are. Very early. My grandfather was supposed to be first white man born on Thursday Island.
Again, I'd refer you to Cora Web, which will, if you just look in the New South Wales Registry first of all,
Right.
at what dates they've got, because if it's in the very early days, it would be in the New South Wales Registry rather than more than likely in Queensland. I would think would be the next one.
Thanks very much.
Coralie, just to unmute yourself and then you can ask the question.
Oh, thanks, Leigh. Oh, very interesting. Learning a whole lot at the moment. Thank you. When I was doing a search for an aunt of mine, I found that there was incorrect details on a church record. They had her date of birth a year later than her correct date of birth. I did try, I've sent something off, I think I found it on Ancestry UK or Ancestry here. I did send something off to make a change or an amendment or to highlight. Is there another way that I can get that changed correct to the correct details?
So the record you want changed, Coralie, was that at the registry or at Ancestry?
I think it was in Ancestry. It's a little while now because I'd stopped, doing a whole lot because I'd nearly finished. But I just found it, thought, well, this is obviously, incorrect. So do I have an avenue of getting it corrected?
Well, from my experience, Ancestry and Find My Past will welcome normally and correct anything that you believe is incorrect. But my experience with the registry has been entirely different. They just don't want to know if the information that was given to them by the informant was possibly incorrect. Then that's the registration they're going to stick with. They won't alter.
Okay. All right. And you were right. Sorry, if I can just quickly say, you were right about. I had my great grandfather and his son. There was Louis and Louisa, and we found that there was this other strange Louisa, but it actually they'd put an A on the end, and it was actually Lewis. So through Joy Murren, she's actually had that changed. So yeah, that was something, a success to find.
Yeah, so different spellings of names, not only family names, but given names can be quite a trial.
Most definitely.
Any more questions?
Ron has a question. Can't hear you, Ron. You don't appear to be muted, but I can't hear you.
Muted, I can't see.
That's coming up. I think you just need to turn up the volume a bit.
I've got my volume on maximum.
Yeah, we can hear you now. We couldn't at the beginning.
Okay, I don't know what's happened there then. I've done nothing. Okay, Leigh, on my father's side, there is no record of his mother's birth. From her marriage certificate, she states who her mother is. From that, there is a female born with a slightly different first name. The date of birth is 1 day different. And my grandmother her last name was always known by the name of a man that this woman married much later on. Is there any way you can sort of correlate any sort of changes to people's names? She's gone from Emma to Emily. She's gone from Johnson to Sparrow. I have no idea where I go from here. Well, I'm pretty sure that this Emma Johnson is actually Emily Sparrow. From Trove, her name is referred to as Emily. She won some competition. So it changed from Emma to Emily, if I'm on the right track early in the life. But I'm just stumped as to being 100% sure. I'm only 99% sure.
Yeah, people did some terrible things, particularly with given names. If people either didn't like or for some other reason decided to use their second or third given name as their commonly referred to name, it can be very confusing. You can be chasing after these people looking for a different name entirely. From what you say you found in Trove, I would think that's probably more reliable than some of the registrations you might find in the registries, because this individual may have been given that name by the original informant, but then in common usage, she's more frequently referred to by the name you found in Trove. So I would think that's probably the more reliable line to be following.
Okay, thanks.
More questions? Anyone else have a question? No more questions? Oh, Jan, you need to unmute, Jan.
Is there some way of finding out the cause of death of your forebears?
Yes, there is. You would have to buy a certificate to find that out. And again, it would depend upon how much information the informant had when they went to the registry to fill in the relevant notification of death. Normally, a medical practitioner would provide those particular details, but yes, you will find that on a death certificate, if it was given to the registry at the time of registration, the details would be given, even way back. And you can usually work out what we call these various ailments these days. They were called different things back in the old days because that's what they were called. And some of the types of diseases that we know commonly these days hadn't even been identified back in the old days, so they might be called quite a different name. Yeah, so yes, that is where you would find it. It's also quite interesting that these days with genealogy, quite often the hobby turns to tracing whether there is a genetic weakness in people. You'll find through various families from time to time that the one type of illness goes from generation to generation. So it's quite a useful thing to know this, so that people can be tested for a disease which their ancestors may have died from.
Thank you. Three of my 4 grandparents died in their 30s and 40s.
Right.
They're very young.
They pass away in Australia.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'd be inclined, it would be worth your while to go onto the site and ask one of the transcriptions agents to get the details for you. If you have difficulties, you can contact me through AVPALS, and I can help you in that direction.
Thank you, Leigh.
Okay, well, thanks, Leigh. If there are no more questions, we might wind up for this session.